Hello, Drake. How are you? My name is John Farrell. Welcome to Farrell Swim Tech. You have sent me some more footage. Thank you very much for doing that. You are my first repeat customer, as they say. I've looked over your footage, and I think there's a couple things that we can definitely do to. I would say right now we need to look more at the finesse angle of your stroke rather than okay, you'll see in a sec. Okay, so something that I've done right here is as I was reviewing this stuff, I've actually slowed this video down to 50%. So this is at half speed, okay? Typically, I like to do kind of a lightning round, but there's kind of an overall item that we need to discuss in terms of your stroke. And okay, before I get into it, let me kind of explain what we're talking about here. We need to move. Your stroke needs to move away from muscling it. So there's kind of two types of swimmers. There's swimmers that just muscle their way through the water. It's like, and then there's more finesse swimmers, which is boom, very fluid, very smooth swimming. So essentially what we want to do is we want to strike a balance between the yin and the yang of strength stroke and finesse stroke, because you can have the smoothest stroke, but if you have no strength behind it, you're not really going anywhere. And if you're muscling it too much, your finesse is gone and you're pretty much a barge trying to just plow your way through the water. So we're trying to strike a balance here. And I feel like your stroke is kind of more on the muscly side of things. I can tell by your muscle definition, you are a very strong individual, which is fantastic and awesome. We just need to refine the strength that you have into a more fluid stroke mechanic. What this is going to do is this is going to introduce a lot more efficiency into your stroke. You have the strength. I can tell you have the strength. You have the strength to be a very strong swimmer. What we need to do is we need to channel that strength in a more linear fashion. Okay. So with that in mind, what we're attempting to do tonight is we're attempting to diagnose points of your stroke, because overall your pull path is pretty good. I would say, right off the bat, the number one thing I would say is do not breathe every stroke. Work on breathing every 4 strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe. 2, 3, 4. Okay? Breathing every stroke just makes your life harder, especially when you're in training. We'll talk about this a little bit more. We will talk about your breathing technique. It needs a little bit more refinement, and this is going to come from a little bit more rotation during your breath strokes. Okay, so let's look at your stroke right now at 50%. Okay. So right now, what I see here is I see too much. You're trying to do too much with your legs. I see your legs are kind of wiggling around a lot of places, and your legs are actually causing your center of body to wiggle a little bit. We'll look at the underside footage, and you'll see yourself wiggling a lot back and forth. You actually have pretty good rotation here. By the way, very good flip turn. Very good flip turn. Props on that flip turn. So what's happening is you're kind of, it's just hard to explain it because I can't pinpoint one exact thing of like, oh, you need to lift your elbow higher. Oh, you need to do this. It's just kind of an overall form item. So what I want to do though is let's kind of break it down item by item. So we're going to break this down number one by your legs. I think legs are probably the easiest thing to talk about. And then we'll break it down further with your arms. And specifically what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and talk about taking our arms. One second, let me kill my crop here. So we want to try and take our arms from pulling here to pulling here. I mean, we're talking about another foot or so from tip here, pulling here to pulling here. Okay, and that actually will make a pretty big difference in your stroke. And then we need to but I still feel like number one, we need to talk more about the pull path in terms of linearity. Um, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And then breathe every 4 strokes. Simply stop breathing every stroke. That's something that you need to do right now. Just stop breathing every stroke, because breathing every stroke really kind of messes up. Oh, excuse me. Oh, sorry, I've been chasing kids all day long. My whole family's in town for the New Year's, and I've been chasing kids all day. So I do apologize if I yawn a couple times. Yes. So, yeah, breathing every 4 strokes. I do apologize. My mind wanders. I have massive ADHD as well. So with breathing every 4 strokes, this is going to increase your lung capacity. It's going to make your lungs and your whole cardiovascular system work more. Swimming is the only one of the 3 disciplines where you're actually encouraged to hold your breath. Make use of that. Take advantage of that. When you're in training, in swimming, in the pool, breathe every 4 strokes. If you need to make your time standards a little bit slower to accommodate this, do it. In the long run, breathing every 4 strokes during practice will be a massive boon to you. You do not have to breathe every 3. So breathing bilaterally, so breathe to the right, 2, 3, breathe to the left, 2, 3. Not necessary. If you only want to breathe to one side, if you're incredibly uncomfortable breathing to the other side, just breathe every 4 strokes, okay? You only have to hold your breath an extra 2 seconds, 1 second, 2 seconds. It's really not that much. Over time, you'll build it up to where you can do full workouts breathing every 4 strokes, unless you're doing like a sprint, okay? If you're doing a sprint or a long distance effort, maybe by the 1,000, 1,200 mark, you got to kind of breathe every stroke. Try to avoid that as much as possible while you're training swimming. That will pay dividends when you're actually at the competition, okay? So, all right. So, let's take away this and let's go back and let's kind of dissect what you're doing here, okay? So, your left hand is in the water right now, okay? So you reach forward, you start pulling out to the side, and then now you bend that elbow to engage it, and then you push it backwards. I do apologize. When you're in slow motion, it kind of tends to freak out like this. Okay. Now let's see here. Let's get back to here, okay? So you see that elbow is bent. You're pushing it all the way back, so that's good. The only problem is the first portion... Oh, shoot. Sorry. The first portion of the stroke is really you're just pulling off into strange lands. You're not really pulling with purpose in that first part until about a quarter of the way into the pull right here. Here's where you really start engaging in your pull with your left arm. Okay, now let's take your right arm. Right arm coming in, pushing all the way down immediately. That's the number one thing you do with your stroke is you don't have a high elbow, you have a low elbow. Okay, high elbow, low elbow. Did you see immediately you pushed that elbow down? Okay, you want to keep that elbow high, and then you want to grab that arm and engage it, okay? So right now, you're pushing it down even further. Now you're catching. Do you see how much distance there is in your right arm between your fingertip when you finally start to grab the water and where the water surface is? It's about that much, about 2 feet, about 2+ feet underwater, just every time you pull with your right arm. So that's a sign that you're muscling it. And trust me, this is very, very common. Very common for people to muscle it through the stroke. Okay, so let's get back to the left hand here. Okay, left hand's good. High elbow, high in the water. Reach, now you start to pull. Okay, did you notice that left arm? You see the difference between your left arm and your right arm. Okay, so right here, your right arm is already here. Okay, so note the position of your upper body. Okay, so your right arm is already firmly planted down in the water. Okay, so your left arm is coming up and over. You're here. See how nice? So you're taking a breath. Your arm position is actually really good. This is actually a little bit opposite of what I typically see. I typically see people, when they breathe to their right, they drop their shoulder a little bit. They drop their shoulder. So your arm is actually your left arm is in a much better position than your right arm, because your right arm pushes vertically down so far. So let's get back into it here. So there, now you're catching, you're pushing backwards, left hand, all the way down there. Okay? So now let's look at the underwater one. Okay? So look at your lower body. Okay? Your lower body is kind of wiggling from side to side. And also you see how, so let's just keep it, let's keep going from here. So you see how every time you push, your body kind of snakes. Okay? So I was trying to kind of figure out what was going on here, but this is almost textbook muscling, where you are purposefully putting so much pressure on your arms that you're allowing your body to skew. So think of this like a super squishy bike. Okay? You push down on the pedal, that whole frame is going to flex, because this is stiffness 101. Remember, I'm a structural engineer. I have to deal with stiffness all the freaking time. So that's like you see my bikes is right here. That's like if I push down the frame, I push down on my right leg on the right pedal, the frame buckles to the side. And then I push down with the left and the frame buckles to this side. Okay? So each time I push, that frame is buckling to the side. So what's happening here with your stroke is you're pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling. So your body is caving to the pressure that your upper body is putting itself under. Okay? This is textbook muscling. So let's kind of view this again. Let's view this a couple more times, because, like I said, this is a very strange concept. This is a very strange concept to teach, because quite honestly, it's very hard to self-diagnose this. It's very hard to self-diagnose this, and the main reason why is because we're in water. We're in zero gravity. You know, we try and do something, and it just kind of makes our body do something weird, and it's kind of hard to mess around and play around with it and really kind of focus in and figure out how to really come up with a good solution to it, just because we're not used to we're still not used to this whole water thing, you know? So as we're looking here, a couple things that can be done to really, really eliminate this whole wiggle thing. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to first show you what this looks like at normal speed. Okay. So this is 100% standard filming speed. Okay. So you kind of see yourself wiggle. All right. And yes, I'm doing this to make you completely self-conscious of it, by the way. So there's just lots of wiggling going on. And I think one of the main drivers is your knees. You're trying to make your legs do a lot more than they should be. I think that's number one, first and foremost. You need to really work on straightening out those legs. And let's see here. There you go. There's your leg right there. Say hi, leg. Hi, leg. Going. So, okay. So Usually when people are muscling their strokes too much, number one, they wiggle with the front of their body because they're really just as opposed to a nice continuous arm cycle. The other major contributor to a muscling is the legs, especially if you bend your knees way too much. So I think moving forward, number one, what needs to happen is you need to hyper focus on kicking with straight legs. Kicking with straight legs will do wonders on correcting this kind of wiggle problem, because your overall body position is not bad. It can be a little bit better. Your legs can be a little bit more towards the surface, and I think eliminating further eradicating this knee bend will help with that. But I think for you, what this is going to do is this is going to allow you to literally swim straighter. Because what's happening is right now you're kind of doing this. You're kind of doing these little S wiggles. And when you're in an open water situation, you don't have the lovely black line at the bottom of the lake. So we really need to focus on, unconsciously swimming straight. The only way you can do this in a pool literally is swimming with your eyes closed. I had an assistant coach at BYU, and he literally would swim 3,000 yards with his eyes. He would pull 3,000 yards with his eyes closed. That's what he did. That's what he did for exercise. He would just hop in a pool, swim for 3,000 yards, never open his eyes once. Yeah, he wore goggles. He totally could, but he didn't. I don't know. Coach D was awesome. I loved him, but he's kind of a weird guy in some aspects of his life. But yeah, so straightening out those legs will really help with the overall stiffness of your position. And I mean, you don't want to be like, it's just like pop, 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 pop. The way that I explain it is like those little scuba man. You had the bathtub, you had the little wind up scuba man toy, and you go brrrr. Or the little frogs that had the little flutter kicking frogs. It just like pop, 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 pop. What you want to think of is your legs are like that, and you are just kicking. Something I just thought of. Let's look at this a little bit here. Okay, let's get down, get my lovely legs out here. Okay, this is realistically about it. This is about all the legs you really need to worry about. Okay. Nice straight legs, point the toes, don't bend the knee. My knees are absolutely locked. I'm engaging the quads and I'm engaging the whole entirety of the quads. Because the one thing that you got to also remember when you bend your knee and kick like this is you concentrate it on this area of the quad, okay? As opposed to this part, which uses the entirety of your leg. So if you spread out the muscle groups that are being used, each muscle group takes a smaller load of the activity. Now remember, I am not a kinesiologist. I do not claim to know exactly what is going on. All I do know is I know engineering. And if you spread out a point load on a larger area, it's not going to affect the surrounding dirt as much. That's the concept here. I use engineering in literally everything that I do. Yes. So yes. Straighten your legs, point your toes. Do not bend that knee. I think that will greatly help with the overall smoothness of the rotation. Oh, okay. All right. Next thing. So let's talk about that pull path. Okay. So your right arm and your left arm are doing two very, 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 very different things. And one of the main reasons for that is actually the fact that you do breathe every stroke. That is one of the main reasons why I very much so recommend people don't breathe every stroke, because it gives yourself a couple strokes to kind of normalize your stroke, to where your right arm and your left arm are doing the same thing. Because the problem is when you're here, your left arm is up, but then when you're here, you drop that elbow, okay? So you want to try and keep it up here. You don't want to drop that elbow. You want to keep it here and here. you kind of want your cheek kind of touching your arm every single time. You do it pretty much with your left arm, but that's because you're here taking a breath. So your left arm would look like here if you dropped your shoulder. So you want to keep it here, and then you want to keep it here. Okay? So what I highly recommend, I recommend getting a snorkel. Stroke and balance issues can be solved the absolute quickest with a snorkel. If you have problems utilizing a snorkel, get some nose plugs. Buy a different couple pairs of nose plugs. I'm not going to lie. I looked at some nose plugs on Amazon. Holy butt, they're expensive right now. It's a tiny little piece of plastic. They're selling for like $15. I'm just like, this should cost like $5. What's going on here? It must be a supply chain issue or something or other. I don't know. But buy a couple different pairs of nose plugs. I use nose plugs throughout the entirety of my collegiate career. I use them for backstroke, and I use them whenever I use snorkels. We use snorkels rather frequently, mostly for pulling sets. So we would, really focus on distributing that load between the shoulders a lot more evenly. Yes. So I would highly recommend getting a snorkel and just focusing on that pull path, just taking it easy, allowing, and then working on getting your right arm. It's mostly your right arm, getting that right arm right here as opposed to dropping it. So with the snorkel, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to swim while keeping your head right about here. So you don't have to rotate your neck to breathe. Okay, we'll talk about breathing in a quick second. We kind of need to fix something with your breathing. But that allows you to keep your head nice and neutral, so you can just focus on pulling with that proper pull path. I really think that is going to take you to the next level, because right now your right arm, when it sinks into the water, it's just producing a ton of drag every single stroke. So that's kind of why your right arm and your left arm are doing two completely different things. So I would I think those two things, plus just working on when you breathe, try not to rotate the neck. Try to get that elbow to the side. Here, let me show you which one. Side. No, it was side. This one, the side one, and then we're gonna go about halfway here. So you'll see yourself breathe. You see, rotate and breathe. Rotate and breathe. Rotate the neck. Rotate the neck. Rotate the neck. Okay. What we want to do is we don't want to start the breath with the neck and then follow through with the shoulders. It's actually the exact opposite. You actually want the shoulders to rotate, and you want to think of that head being locked into your shoulders. So your neck doesn't rotate this way. But as you rotate the upper body, your head moves alongside your body. So what I like to do is I like to put my elbows at my side, touch my chin, okay? So if I try and move my neck, I'm going to feel it. And then just rotate to the side, rotate forward. Rotate to the side, rotate forward. Okay? So what we want to do here is we want to work on getting to that breath without rotating that neck. Okay? This is way more of a quality of life issue than anything. This doesn't necessarily affect your stroke too much, especially since you kind of have, oh crap, you know what? You didn't see any of that. I'm sorry. I didn't hear. Let's go through the footage again. Okay, so rotate the neck. But you kind of see this kind of blah 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 blah. So you see your right arm close to the surface, left arm pushes all the way down. Left arm pushes all the way down before you start your stroke. So you see up at the surface, then you pull. And I know this is at real time. So, and also your right arm kind of does the half moon pull where you're pulling with a straight. Ow! Why did that hurt? That was weird. So it's kind of like you're pulling with the straight arm all the way underneath you. You do bend that elbow a little bit, but you want to focus more on grabbing that water first thing and then pushing it backwards. But I think for now, what you need to focus on is you need to focus on those legs. Get those legs kicking right behind you. Don't let those legs pop out. And then you really want to focus on smoothing out that your stroke cadence. You want to smooth out your stroke cadence. Even if you have to take things just a little bit slower, I would recommend that. Because your stroke right now looks a lot more kind of like a sprinter stroke rather than a distance stroke. Sprinting strokes and distance strokes are two completely different animals. I would say your stroke right now looks more like a sprinter stroke. It would not be a very good idea using this technique for a long distance, although I know this is what you're doing right now. You want to focus on really just smoothing out that stroke. I think smoothing out the stroke mechanics, that's going to introduce a lot more efficiency into your stroke. That will also it's just gonna make it a huge quality of life adjustment into your stroke. So Drake, thank you very much for sending me this video. If you have any questions on anything that I have done, please shoot me an email. My email is right here. Yeah, as always, I'm open for Zoom calls if you want to do a quick Zoom call, anything like that. Also, you know how the donation things work. For those of you that don't know, I do this as a donation based. I do not do this professionally. I do this as a side hobby. I've been swimming for over 20 years. I've been private coaching for over 5 years. I was an high school All-American, so I've walked the walk. I know how to swim fast. And I just like helping people get fast. So I do this based off of a donations-based thing. If you can't afford a donation, hey, that's okay. If you can, I use a baseline that if we were to work in person, I typically charge $20 for 30 minutes. So if you are able to donate, that's kind of a baseline. You honestly can donate as much as you want. But just for a frame of reference, if we were to meet in person, I only charge $20 for 30 minutes. I can do this because this is not my job. I am a civil engineer. I designed swimming pools and fake rock work for a living. So I do this as a side hobby, mainly to pay for my own personal triathlon efforts, as well as buy milkshakes for my kids. They love Del Taco mini milkshakes. They ask for them all the time, even in the middle of winter. I mean, I live in Southern California, so it's not that crazy cold here, but it's been like 50 degrees and my 5-year-old still asks for milkshakes. It's like, girl, it's 50 degrees. Come on. She's like, I want a milkshake. I'm like, crap. So anyway, Drake, thank you once again for sending me this. If you have any friends that would like to have me review their stroke technique, shoot them my email. I am always open to work with anyone and everyone. Hopefully within the next year or so, I want to launch a website to where I offer my services to the general public. But as for now, I'm only word of mouth. So, Drake, once again, thank you very much for sending me the footage. I hope that you have a great New Year's. Good luck in all of your races next year. Just remember, you got my email right here. You can always shoot me an email. You got any questions about competing, wetsuits, you name it, I can answer it. So, yep, that's going to be it for me tonight. Once again, thank you all so much for tuning in, everyone who has. And, as always, good night, Isaiah Norris. Wherever you are, I'm out of here. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.